coming to my phone. Well, how's the audio? I'm going to try and I'm on my laptop. I'm on my phone at the moment. Is the audio okay?
Yeah, you perfectly.
Yeah, all good. Perfect. Okay. Right. So let me. In fact, what I'm going to do, I can't actually see the camera. Let me come out and go. I'll come back in again. I'll be 2 seconds. Had that beer break. Right. I'm back. How's the audio?
All good.
Perfect. Perfect. Right. Have you still got everybody, or did people go off for a beer break in the end?
I think most of us are here.
I think we're all still
Still
here.
here?
Right, okay, perfect, perfect. Right, okay, so I started brewing probably about 2016, I believe. So let me audio. Trying to get my camera work so I can actually see what I'm looking at. All I'm looking at is Jacques at the moment, and whilst they're no, why is it not working? 2 seconds. I don't often use Zoom on my phone, so I'm trying to work out how to use it. Ah, can't get it working. Okay. I'll start anyway. So yeah, so I started brewing and for the first few years, it helps I don't knock the headphones off my head. And for the first few years, like most people, did like kit brews, but rapidly moving on to all grain after about three or four batches. Brewed a few, not many, over the first few 4 years or so. But then, yeah, come March 2020, I found I had a lot more time on my hands, like a lot of other people. So really started to get into brewing it itself, trying to understand it, and so obviously brewing a lot more beer. And I think I can't remember, it was 2021. I was really quite lucky to be able to build this brew space itself. So it's sort of a dedicated three by three ish space. Um, and I thought, yeah, I can brew beer. Like beer. Beer's really good. So I thought I'd send some into competitions. So I think the first couple was the Scottish Open, I think 2022, followed by the I think Lager Than Life actually 2022, and they got destroyed. They were absolutely disgusting beers. I think both beers scored 15, I think at the time. So yes, I wasn't obviously best pleased by that. Obviously, my pie had been hurt and everything. And that was it. I just got the bug then to actually learn brewing, and the hobby just really just exploded for me. Spend an awful lot of time just reading, learning about it. Obviously, brewing beers, entering competitions now for the feedback, and yeah, I'm just absolutely love the hobby. So the setup itself. So I thought I'd try and go through sort of a mock brew day itself, just going through the equipment itself. It all starts with HLT. So this is my 65 litre HLT itself. Might be easy if I do it like that. Um, I don't ever get it anywhere near to capacity, but does the job itself. Water wise, I used to use RO water, which is that's the old filter there. But it always irked me because one, it's just really, really slow. And also just waste an awful lot of water. I think I was wasting something like 3 litres or something like that for every litre I got out of it. And then I found out about spotless water, which is like a pure water station. So then got hold of a couple of 50 litre water jug things, which you probably see in the corner over there. Um, and yeah, and then I've been using spotless water ever since. So then basically building up any water profile that obviously for the style of beer that I'm brewing. So with the HRT itself, what I normally do, I generally heat it to around about 6 degrees, 6 or 7 degrees higher than I want for strike. So then obviously feed it into from the HRT, feed it straight up into the mash tun itself, and yeah, and then I basically let it sit there for a good 10 or 15 minutes or so, just to let the mash tun itself warm up. Hence why obviously having the water temperature a little bit higher than normal. So whilst that's obviously doing its business there, then I'll crack on and mill the grains because I mill everything to the recipe I'm brewing. I've got stacks and stacks of grain and these big old chutney barrels or whatever you call them. So this is a three roller mill now. With the gears as well. But I was just having issues with my last mill. I couldn't mill fine enough, and the rollers were just free spinning. So I upgraded to a three roller mill, and it's been great. I made this base. It's stupidly over engineered using 2x4s and stuff, but it was the only wood that I had spare in the garage at the time. But it does cut out on all the dust, so it's obviously really, really good. And one tip which I actually learned recently with the mashing is that if you mash cap and you mill your sort of dark grains or separately, mill the dark grains first and put them to one side because then when you mill your lighter grains, your base grains, you can clean your rollers. And get all those roaster melts off. So that was something I only learned a couple of days ago, and I'm thinking genius. So I've got a couple of pumps here. So the pump on the left-hand side I only ever use for the hot liquor, because I'm quite lazy, and then I know that at the end of the brew day I don't need to clean it. And a pump on the right, here's the one that I use then for transferring the wort around from the different vessels itself. So most of my mashes are an hour. It's very, very rare that I will probably mash for longer than an hour. I will always do a conversion test after about 45 minutes or so, and invariably it's always done by then anyway. It's very rare, and it goes on for longer. I think the only time I've had to mash for longer than an hour was when I was using Chevalier malt, and I think about an hour and a half. Then I think I had to mash that malt to get it fully converted. So normally, I'll just let it sit for an hour or so. Well, let it sit 45 minutes. I'll do the conversion test. Oops, clunk. And then what I have then, I've got fly spud, pepper as well. So I'll just plug it in there. And then that's how then I can fly sparge and to recirculate the grains as well. Once all recirculated and obviously the grain bed is all nicely set and everything, I'll then transfer it over to the kettle here. And what I generally do is I actually pass it in straight through a hop spider. Just to catch any loose grains, because I do get a few loose grains coming through my system, but I do mill my grains to around about 0.030 of an inch. I don't know now, but it's a fairly fine setting. So I do find some grains do actually get through the filter itself and into the kettle, but obviously sending it through the hop spider really does capture all of those loose grains. So you see that I'm on a propane setup here itself, which obviously in an enclosed space I've got to be quite careful. So when I'm brewing, I do have the extractor fan literally going full whack. I have the garage doors open as well, and also have that door open. So I really try to get as much airflow as possible. But propane, I mean, if I was to do it again, then I might obviously start up with the electric itself. But because I invested into propane from such an early point, I just can't justify at the moment anyway. I can't justify the cost to replacing the bits and bobs to go electric. And cost wise, propane's not too bad. I mean, you can see all those dots on there, which is my way of tracking the number of brews. It's like notches on a bedpost. These are dots on my propane tank, and I do get probably about, I don't know, 20, well, no, 22 brews to a tank. And what's a tank these days? About £55, I think. So it's fairly cost effective when compared to electric anyway. Now, one thing which I actually didn't mention at the start, with the HRT itself. Now, when it comes to the water treatments and the minerals, I don't acidify or put any of the mineral salts in the HRT. So I will always keep that the pure water, and then I will put the sort of minerals for the mash, was obviously straight into the mash tun when I transfer the water over, and I put the sparge minerals straight into the kettle itself. Reason being, again, then I don't have to clean out the HLT at the end of the brew day. Excuse me, hold on a second, beer. Yeah, so the reason being, I've always got pure water inside the HLT itself, and any leftover water at the end of the brew day, I can just leave it in there until the very next brew day. I don't need to empty it if I'm doing a different style or I need a different pH or whatever. So that's just a convenience trick that I've sort of picked up as part of my process. So boiling, yeah. So then, yeah. So I put the sparge minerals into the bowl and obviously let it go. Again, most of my boils are for the hour. Yeah, I can't think of many that I do for more than that. I haven't embraced a 30-minute boil. I think, whilst a lot of people say it's great and good, I believe there is something in the hour-long boil. Just developing those Maillard reactions, things like that. So I will firmly always be an hour boiler, or maybe or longer if I'm doing like a barley wine or something. So after about an hour, yeah, hops, finings. I use Protofloc, like most people, for fines. I think that works well. Started to use the granules, the Protofloc granules. So I'll be really quite precise how much I'm adding. And the last couple of brews, I think they worked really well. I've got a good break. The trub, good separation, and some good clarity at the end as well. At the end of the hour, what I generally do, if I'm not well pouring, actually, well, I'm in a hop stand or anything, I will generally just give it a real good spin and then just leave it off. So I won't cool it. I'll just leave it, at the boiling temperature and cooling off at that point, and then just leave it to sit for, about 15, 20 minutes or so, just to put up that nice cone of all the proteins and gunk and stuff that we just don't want, and the rest, and then the hops and just the stuff we don't want into the fermenter itself. So I'm accruing extra bitterness from that phase because whilst it's not boiling, it's obviously still hot enough to isomerize. So. But I do try and account for that in the recipe. So after about an hour and 20, then I start to transfer it. So I'll transfer from the kettle through the pump, through my counterflow chiller, and then into the fermenter itself. So this is the one I normally use, and this is a unitank version. I do have just one of the older Chronicles there, which in fact is for sale. I'm going to sell this very, very soon. So if anybody's interested, then ping us a message. So I do, yeah. So normally I would put everything straight into this unitank, especially if I intend to dry hop. So it's really good. I put a lot of beer in this thing now. It works really, really well. I've added a few extra bits. The sight glass up at the bottom. Obviously, it really helps me to see what on earth is going on inside, and make sure that it's kicked off fermentation. It allows me to drop any excess tube after 12 hours or so. Then I'll pull off and come in and drop the excess tube, and then towards the end of fermentation, it allows me to drop off the yeast as it starts to drop out as well. So that's a really useful thing. This great big sight glass on the top. That's what I use to dry hop. But if I'm dry hopping, so generally when I dry hop, I will load it up. So you can just see in there. Oh, take it off actually. See there on this valve, there's actually I've actually drilled a hole in there to allow for CO2. So I can pass CO2 up the arm on this side here. So just via straight a ball lock valve, I can fire up CO2 into the headspace, and then naturally will come straight out the through effectively a hot bong. It's my own version of a hot bong. So now I can purge the space quite nicely, and then open up the valve and let the hops go into the fermenter itself. Um, Coolant, yeah. So cooling wise, I now have a G20. I've had that for about a year. I was using a maxi cooler, which Paul on the call now has. So the Maxi was great. I loved it. It worked really really well. But I wanted two channels. I wanted two cooling channels. Which, well, I've got two fermenters. So that was the reason why I upgraded to the G20 last year. And that works great. I use glycol mix in that one, and yeah, it can cold crash, to 1 degree quite easily. I mean, I haven't pushed it any lower, but I don't want to obviously freeze up my beer. But it does work extremely well. Although I must admit, I don't cold crash fast. I generally like to cold crash 2 or 3 degrees every 2 or 3 hours. So I try and replicate what commercial breweries do. But obviously, them cooling a great big tank, would probably take them a few hours. So I try and, in my process, I try and think how would it work in a commercial place, and at least try and replicate some bits of that, if possible, like speed and things like that. So I would generally try and crash over a day, and then once it's crashed, then I keg. So I used to bottle, although, well, to use bottle, I've got three boxes of bottles there, another box of bottles there. I've got bottles in the loft, bottles in the office. They seem to just multiply when you're not looking. But a couple of years ago, I moved to kegs, and even the kegs multiply. So there's kegs in the corner there. So yeah, my method of transferring to kegs. So this is something I've definitely really worked on, because trying to make sure I keep oxygen out of the beer itself. So the way I like to package, I fill up the keg completely with Star San, and I get as much Star San in there as possible. Make sure every last sort of bit of air is out and purged as much as I can. And then I will transfer that Star San using just a gas. I've got a CO2 line here that is I'm on across from a kegerator over there, which we'll look at in a bit. But so I purge the Star San out of the keg, just dump it straight into one of the other kegs. And then I will just rack, basically using something like this. So I just have that attached to the arm itself there. And then obviously a disconnect, ball lock, disconnect going on the beer inside on the keg itself. And then I'll just pass in CO2 in the top, and then just basically push the beer straight into the keg. I've had quite good success with that. I very rarely have oxidized beer, so I think that packaging I think works, and it's really quite good. So that's pardon. Oh no, okay, fair. So then kegging, yep. So after that, then I have my kegerator here. So this was just a fridge I found off eBay, and basically it's big enough to store 4 kegs. And it's where I also store all my minerals and salts and well, all sorts of stuff. It's in the 4 types of salts and the CO2. Oh, that's fine, Darren. So secondary regulators as well, just so I can independently set a different pressure for each of the kegs, so get a different carbonation level, and then one of the outputs as well going across to the over there. Because I really do hate moving the CO2 bottle about. It does scare the life out of me, which is why it's buried behind my drip tray. So it's my I don't have a drip tray, so this functions as my drip tray. This bin. So I've got another fridge up there. So that's my yeast fridge. In fact, there's actually a wet yeast in at the moment. It's just cold crashing. That one's going to brew that's going to go into a short spear, hopefully. Hopefully this week, we'll get the time. If not, probably next week. Freezer there. I have too much stuff in it at the moment, but there's full of yeast and hops in there. Cleaning. Obviously, we all hate cleaning, but it's a necessary part of the hobby itself. So I try and make it, as pleasurable as possible. So getting off eBay, I love eBay. I found this sink going really, really cheap. A proper catering sink, so nice and deep. I can get, the pots in here, by the kettle, and get the fermenter in here, and one of these, I don't know, catering tap things, whatever you call them. But this is probably one of the most useful things. It's an outside tap, because the outside tap, and I've got all now, like different connectors. So, ball lock, garden hose, quick disconnect. Helps I'm actually showing everybody. I can't remember what they're called now. But anyway, so pretty much every single connector, just whack it on there, and I can straight away push, what's it, high pressure, clean water, whatever tubing, or whatever.
Ball lock connector on one of those.
Yeah. So ball lock, there is the ball lock connector there. So that's really useful. That is probably the most useful one there.
I was going to say, that's awesome.
Yeah, because then ball lock connects on there, because then when I'm cleaning my lines, I can then just I can obviously push the beer line cleaner into the beer line, just obviously leave it to sit to clean. And then it's just long enough, the beer line's then just long enough to go over to here, turn on the tap, and then just flush the beer lines. So yeah, I hate cleaning, and I'm that sort of person that just loves efficiency, and I see time. I like to be efficient with time, and so yeah. So I bought all these different connectors, and basically and screw on whichever one, obviously for whatever job I'm doing. So yeah, I think cleaning. Yeah, I think that's about it for cleaning. I do have CIP balls, so when I do strip down the fermenter, I take all the gubbins off, and then I do run a CIP loop using one of the pumps, and then the CIP ball, which works okay, but the pump, it's just powerful enough, I think. But one day I might get a faster pump, do a better job. And I think that's about it, really. I know it's obviously rushed through that, but I think that's most things covered. Yeah, any questions for anybody while I drink some beer?
Definitely want to know where you got that adapter for the ball lock.
The adapter?
Yeah.
Well, that's just yes. In fact, yeah, but that's not a standard size ball lock. So that is, I did find that on AliExpress. So it's a half inch BSP ball lock, and then that's just a 3/4 inch. You see that there? So 3/4 to a half inch.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just a straightforward half-inch ball lock connector.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you can't find them, ping me, and I'll see if I can find the order, and then find the link from the order.
Cool. Thank you.
But that was definitely about 6 months ago. I've not had that one long. So, but yeah, that's really very useful.
I'm a bit blown away, to be honest. You've got this whole massive brewery built in, what's it, 3 years, you say, since you started?
Yeah. I think full on 3 years. I think, and definitely the process as well, because I think prior to that, I was, of course, having to move stuff into the kitchen, and using there was like the igloo coolers for a mash tun, buckets and stuff. So, but yeah, I've just oxidized every beer I made. So, and yeah, I wasn't having that. So,
On the top of the uni tank, you've made a sort of sight glass into a hot bong.
yes, yeah,
What diameter is that? Is it 3 inches?
yeah. So that's just a 3 inch sight glass, and yeah, obviously three-inch valve itself.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that 3 inch double disconnect on top there. That's something
Ah,
I've been looking
yes.
for a while.
Yep, another AliExpress job. I say I buy a lot of my stainless steel from AliExpress because, well, it's cheaper than it is from anywhere in this country, which is a shame, but it's how it is. So yeah, it's a straightforward, like, what do you call them, two gas type posts.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's quite useful. Yes, yeah, so I can feed in CO2 from the top. I mean, I never use the beer line, so and then I'll send in gas from the bottom as well, depending on what I'm doing. I mean, you can get single ones because that one there is just a single version, but it doesn't have the PRV. But I wanted one with a PRV for obvious reasons, especially when you're on a uni tank. I don't just rely on the spunding
Yeah.
valve, so always have a backup.
Yeah. Have you thought about putting a butterfly valve between the sight glass and the actual uni tank?
This is so
Oh,
that
it
is
is.
butterfly. Yep, that's a butterfly valve. But this
Yeah.
one, yeah, but this one is actually had a hole drilled in it. So
Ah.
then I can send in CO2 through that port there. So sending CO2 in there into the headspace, and then I can keep this closed while I pour the hops in there, and then I can send up a constant stream of CO2 through the sight glass and out.
Mhm.
Yeah. I just have to make sure I don't put the valve at the bottom, otherwise I could have a bit of a mess.
It's pretty neat, isn't it? It's a big improvement on the old Chronicle there by its side, isn't it?
Yeah, well, definitely, yeah. I mean, it's leaps, yeah, on its head and shoulders. Well, in size as well, but yeah. I mean, well, the things that the Chronicle does a great job. I mean, I've just done
Yeah.
a kit beer and I stuck it in the Chronicle. So uh, yeah. But I'd say, if anybody's interested in the Chronicle, so I picked up I've had hiding behind the corner is actually an X3. So they just come into stock, Malt Miller the other day. And I've always wanted to upgrade the Chronicle to the X3, but they've always been out of stock, which is fine. It saves you spending money. But then the other day they came into stock, and I thought, well, I was going to do it at some point anyway. So got the X3, and so time to let this one go.
So I guess how's the bottling done? Did you mention that or did I miss something?
Well, I generally keg.
Oh, you keg and then you bottle from the keg.
For competitions. Yes.
Oh, I see.
For competitions, yes. So what I do, because I generally bottle in PET, I go through that process where. See if I can
Yeah, I
find
see the Cooper's
it.
box there.
Yeah, I mean this is a waste one, but anyway, so that's fine. So, quickly try and do this all one-handed. Right. So yeah, so I've got the carbonation caps here. So then what I do is that then I'll just fill it with gas. Was it purge it with gas first, and then I would then just basically put well, obviously send a jumper line from the keg into the bottle, and then just fill out the bottle, cap it, and send it on its way.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I did bottle the other day, which is the first time I've actually done a fermenter to bottle. I'd say first time in years I've done that. But I actually used one of these bottling guns. Yeah, one of these the Blickman bottling guns. It went okay. I need some practice, I think. A lot of fobbing, but I managed to get the beer in the bottle in the end. So.
Arthur, are you in the garage there? I missed that bit maybe at the beginning.
Yeah. This is
Whereabouts
the
are you?
Yeah, this is the garage.
Oh,
So it's actually really nicely done. In the sense that we had an extension built in 2021, and as part of that, I wanted to make the garage, a really nice space to be. So a nice screed floor, it's been painted with a polyurethane paint, obviously decent door, double skin walls, so obviously breeze block on the inside and all painted as well. So yes, it's a nice space, and it's fairly warm out here. So it's 17, it's 17 degrees at the moment. So
you even got a massive thermometer on the wall.
yeah, well,
Right.
yeah, well, yeah,
You've got
humidity. Yeah, I need to know the relative humidity.
It's an amazing space, Arthur. I think it's really you've done amazingly well, including the
Yeah.
floor and everything. Great stuff. And it's been
Yeah.
showing in your beers, of course, in the last few years. You've been knocking it out of the park. You're very organized person.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's just the engineer in me. I just love process. I love
that you're an
right.
Okay.
Software developer. So
right.
So yeah, it's just a process that I love, and just and obviously the end product's nice as well. So
wow, that's great stuff. Thank you.
Could I ask, do you do decoction, and how do you do that in the setup? If you had to do decoction.
I don't. I have thought about it, but then I read horror stories, mainly from this group, about decoction. But I do have here an induction. What do you call it? The tabletop induction hob thing. So if I really wanted to, I think I do have a pan somewhere as well. Yeah, there we go. Big old pan in there. So if I don't know, if I lost my mind one day, then I probably could. I'll probably obviously use that setup. But I think I'm one of those people that I'll just probably throw in 200 grams of melanoid in or something, and just call it a day. But yeah, I mean, I think I do like coming up with the recipes, but I think I like just the setup as well, the engineering part of it. Obviously trying to work out how I can save time. That's just silly things from from a ball lock valve, to the process. How can I efficiently get beer from here, or like hot liquor through into the fermenter as efficiently as possible, and that's what I like to sort of do and think about, and try and incrementally improve things. I've actually got a Holmes coil as well, so sat in the box in a corner. So that's another job for later in the year. I want to put a Holmes coil actually in the Brewzilla or the Digiboil. It's not Brewzilla, in the Digiboil, so I can actually do stepped mash. Because one issue I have is when I do start to recirculate the mash, I lose a good 4 or 5 degrees, because going through the hosing and everything else, it's naturally losing heat. So by the time I've done 15 minutes of recirculating and I get it into the kettle, it could have lost 5 to 10 degrees. Obviously, the conversion is done by then, so it probably doesn't really matter. But I still think there's still some enzymatic activity going on, so it could still be obviously making that wort a little bit more fermentable. And I like to try different things with the step mashes. So, but anyway, it's not a project for later in the year.
That was going to be my next question: is step mashing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's here. I mean, I've got small, but literally a lot of things is just all sat in boxes. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have enough time. Oh, yeah. And yeah, that's another thing. Now I've actually got a present Christmas, a the mini bucket. So that's a 10-litre fermenter because I do sort of also want to get into recipe prototyping and obviously brew less in the sense that brew more frequently but less volume. And it's nice having 20 liters, but sometimes I want to to try and get through the recipes faster. And whilst I can drink, 20 liters is still a hell of a lot to get through by yourself, obviously. And I like to do some high ABV stuff as well. So really see how high I can push some of the recipes. I love a barley wine. And so yeah, it's probably that's going to be probably a lot more suited in a 10, 12 litre fermenter rather than it's like one of these 25-litre fermenters.
Arthur, I just wanted to ask, when you're looking at a recipe, do you actually work out what your final batch size into the fermentation vessel is going to be, and then work your way backwards, taking into account all the different losses along the way?
Um, Only to a point. I think if I brew a really hoppy beer, then I'll generally notch up my batch size, by a litre or two, depending on, So if I'm going to dry hop, say 200 grams of dry hopping, then yeah, I'll probably notch it up a litre or two. But I think
Is the counterflow chiller a loss? And the tubing is a loss as well. Anything in the tubing or what?
No, because I'm a skinflint, so I will salvage what's left in it. So
In the
because
counterflow?
yeah, exactly. So because it goes in the top
Yeah.
and it ends up coming down the bottom, obviously, once I've managed to pump as much as I can through, whatever's left in the hosing, I will just drain into a jug and then pour the jug straight into the unit tank itself. So because you're right, that counterflow chiller can hold a good half-litre to three-quarters of a litre, which is quite a percentage when you're doing 21-litre batch sizes. So no, I will try and salvage what I can. Obviously I won't put in crap from the kettle or all the bits that's left over, but anything past the pump, I will try and salvage and chuck it in.
Something that works really well for you, that Brewtech mash tun. Does it have any negatives to it? Is it just a perfect piece of kit?
Well, this one is really cool because it's the perfect size, I think, for the batch sizes. So, well, if you go back in the archives, I did a video like this, but I had the 20-gallon, the 20-gallon mash tun, 80 litres or so. But that was ridiculous because when you only need like 15 litres of hot liquor, and I don't know, 4 kilos or 5 kilos of malt, it was just literally just a few grains swimming around in a liquor at the bottom of the mash tun, and it would lose its temperature because the volume wasn't in there. So I sold that. A brewer in, I think, Anglia way has got that now. And then I got this one. So this is. Yes, this is a 10-gallon. It's coming out on the camera, but it's a 10-gallon version. And for what I brew, which is generally anywhere between 3 to 6% typically, it's perfect. It's perfect size. It holds its temperature. It might lose 1 degree, 1.5 degrees during the course of just being inside the mash tun. I mean, obviously, it will lose a lot more once I start to recirculate, but during about the first 45 minutes, it would only lose 1 to 2 degrees tops. So I thoroughly recommend them. They're not particularly cheap, but I think it's good. I will have this for a very long time. I think I've only maxed it out once when I brewed what would that have been? Probably the barley wine. That was a 9-point-something barley wine. And that was literally up at the top. In fact, I couldn't use a fly sponge or anything, and so yeah, I had to trickle water in the top, but it was right at the very limits. So yeah, so it can easily do 9 to 10% beers depending on your liquor to grist ratio. after that, you may have to obviously do things a bit differently. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted a mini bucket, so I can use that and go really high, like look to 10% plus beers, and then but then have less volume. That's the plan anyway.
So Arthur, I mean, I'm really impressed, just like what Steve was saying, is the setup. It's so compact and so efficient and all of that. And what would you say is the whole cost? If you ignore the kegs and the kegerator, maybe this is a sensitive topic, but it looks like the fermenter is the expensive piece of kit there, isn't it? I don't know.
If you have to ask, it's too much.
Yeah, I mean you're right. The fermenter, and I mean that one because I was impatient, and I really wanted a unit tank. And at the time, this was, I think, probably just coming out of COVID times. I think so, 22, maybe 23, probably. You just couldn't buy them in this country. The usual places didn't have them. I didn't want. Was it the Brutals one? So I looked at the Brutals. I thought I weren't too sure at the time. So I had this imported from the US, so via eBay and like the global reseller program, which would pay an absolute fortune, then paying through customs, and yeah, it really wasn't cheap. But so yeah, I mean, you're right. So that is probably the most expensive thing single item in here.
Right.
But then you know what it's like. I mean, a lot of things individually are cheap. You know what I mean? So connectors. I mean, but then after a few years, you end up with a box of connectors, and you realise you probably got £100 worth of stuff in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just £10 here, £10 there. But yeah, I'd hate to add it up. I think I don't know. And all of the kegs are second hand. I only ever buy them on eBay. They're £40 a keg. So. I think I've got a lot of stuff with me. In fact, looking around, probably most. I'm not, apart from obviously the stainless steel, the main items. I think fridge eBay, freezer eBay, chutney barrels eBay. Yeah, a lot of the buckets are eBay, kegs eBay, sink eBay. Yeah, so I do, and then a lot of the other stuff is AliExpress as well. I try not to spend money.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, and that's for sale as well. If anybody wants the big version of the kettle, direct fire kettle, unused, I bought it again thinking I might do some big batches, and it ended up on the shelf and never been used. So again, if anybody's after a big kettle, again, message me. We'll have a chat.
Arthur?
Yeah.
What beer styles have worked really well with the existing kit, and with the new brew built that you've got there? Have you got an intended style which you think is going to be best suited to that?
I mean, I like brewed English styles. But I think the kit lends itself to a good number of styles, of most styles. I've never brewed sours, but I don't like sours. I've gone off. Well, I haven't gone off IPAs. I think I've gone off brewing IPAs. But I think the dry hopping and stuff like that just annoys me, and all the hops getting stuck at the bottom, and you're trying to rouse them, and it just yeah.
Right.
So I think so I say so. I brew a lot of bitters. I'm saying, well, what I've got at the moment, I'll probably contradict myself at the moment. So maybe I've got lager, an ordinary bitter, Baltic porter, and English porter. So those are sort of styles I like to brew. Two lagers, bitter and a porter. Not two lagers, sorry. Simple lager and bitter and a porter. So yeah, it works well for high ABV stuff, and I say the Baltic Porter picked up a medal in the Irish. In fact, 3 of those on the board picked up medals, so it can do anything. So I think it's just basically what I feel like brewing. I say I'm going to do a short spear next. And I don't know after that. Oh, yes, I do know after that. Then I'll be brewing something for the beer balls competition. So an American. So yeah, so there we go. That'll be my first IPA for probably a good few months. I can't remember the last time I brewed an IPA.
You mean the West is Best competition?
Yes, the West is best. Although I should be doing an amber.
Oh.
I've never brewed an American amber, so it'd be a good opportunity to try the style. Yes. Any more questions from anybody?
No, I've got nothing. No. It's difficult to think of questions. You cover everything.
Yeah. There we go. Back in the room. There you go, Jack. So back over to you then.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was I was thank you for spending the time and setting up the camera and everything. And wow, a brew shed like that is really well organized. Yeah. I don't have much more to say. I think I'm probably not gonna stay long myself. But I thought this would be an opportunity to discuss more equipment, seeing as that's what we're looking at. But I think I need to go sit down and digest everything that was shown to me. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, cheers.